The great hall of Nexus Prime was quiet except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Commander Vextal stood before a group of young alien cadets from 12 different worlds. His 4 eyes scanned their eager faces as his clawed hands gripped the speaking platform. "Sit down," he said in his rough voice. "What I'm about to tell you will change how you see the galaxy forever." The cadets shifted in their seats. Some were reptilian like the Sec. Others looked like giant moths with the Etherians, and a few belonged to species Vextal had never seen before. They all had one thing in common. They were young and thought they knew everything about war. Vextal's scarred carapace caught the light as he moved. Battle wounds covered his body like a map of every fight he had survived. The young aliens stared at him with respect and fear. "You think you know what terror looks like," Vextal continued. "You think your species are the strongest, the smartest, the most dangerous in the galaxy. I thought the same thing once. I was wrong. Dead wrong." He activated the holographic display behind him. Images of peaceful human ships appeared in the air above them. The vessels looked simple and weak compared to the massive war machines of other species. 3 cycles ago, I commanded the strongest fleet in the Krishan Empire. We had conquered 40 worlds. We had never lost a battle. We were proud and foolish. Vextal's voice grew darker. That was before we met the humans. A young Sec cadet raised her scaled hand. "Commander, humans are weak. Everyone knows this. They have small ships and simple weapons." Vextal turned his 4 eyes toward her. The look he gave her made the cadet sink back into her seat. "That is exactly what we thought," he said. "And that mistake cost my empire everything." The hologram changed to show a large human ship called the New Soul. It was painted white with blue markings. Windows lined its sides, and Vextal could see gardens growing inside through the transparent sections. This was a colony ship carrying 50,000 human civilians. Engineers, doctors, farmers, teachers, children. They were heading to a new world in the Outer Rim to build a home. Vextal paused. "My orders were simple. Capture the ship. Take the humans as slaves. Sell them at Kepler Station." The cadets leaned forward. This was the kind of story they wanted to hear. Tales of conquest and easy victories. "The human ship had no weapons," Vextal continued. "No shields worth mentioning. When we surrounded them, they did not fight. They sent a message asking us to let them go. They offered to share their food and medical supplies if we would leave." Them alone, he laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. We laughed at them. Weak humans begging for mercy. War Marshal Thokran ordered us to board their ship. We expected them to surrender immediately. The hologram showed Krishan soldiers in heavy armor walking through the corridors of the human ship. Vextal pointed to one of the figures. "That is me leading the boarding party. I was so confident, so sure of our victory." The scene changed to show humans being forced into cargo holds. Men, women, and children with their hands bound, fear in their eyes. We found an engineer named Dongwu, who tried to protect a group of children. We broke his arms and legs to make an example. A medical officer called Heejin refused to help us operate their systems. We tortured her for information. Vextal's voice became quieter, but somehow more frightening. A security chief named Taimin fought us with nothing but his bare hands when we came for the children. We killed him slowly so the others would see what happened to those who resisted. The young cadets were not smiling anymore. Some looked sick. We took them all to Kepler Station and sold them in the slave markets. 50,000 humans scattered across the galaxy to work in mines, factories, and worse places. We thought we had won a great victory. Vextal turned off the hologram and looked directly at his audience. "The human government sent us one message after we sold their people. Do you know what it said?" The cadets shook their heads. It said, "We are coming to get them back." That was all. 6 words. No threats, no demands, no anger. Just a simple statement of fact. A young Etherian cadet fluttered his wings nervously. "What did your empire do?" "We ignored it," Vextal said. "Humans were weak. What could they do against the mighty Krishan Empire? We had 10,000 warships. They had maybe 100 small patrol boats." He began walking back and forth in front of the cadets like a caged animal. For 6 months, nothing happened. Human ambassadors still came to meetings. They still traded with other species. They still smiled and said please and thank you like always. Some of my commanders started to think the message was a joke. Vextal stopped walking and faced the cadets again. But I started to notice things, small things. Human ships stopped coming to certain areas of space. Their colonies went quiet. Not abandoned, just quiet. When you called them, they answered. But something was different. The humans were not smiling anymore. He activated another hologram showing a map of the galaxy. Trade ships reported strange energy readings from human space. The philosophical Quellian said something was wrong, but they could not explain what. Even the free traders who trade with everyone started avoiding human territory. Red dots appeared on the map, showing human worlds. We should have listened to the warnings. We should have paid attention to the silence. But we were too proud, too stupid, too confident in our own strength. Vextal's 4 eyes glowed in the dim light of the hall. The humans were not being weak during those 6 months. They were not hiding. They were not afraid. They were preparing, and when they were ready, they showed us what real terror looks like. The hall was completely silent now. Even the station's humming seemed to have stopped. You want to know what human wrath looks like? Vextal asked. You want to understand why every species in this galaxy now treats humans with respect and fear? Then listen carefully to what I tell you next. Listen and remember, because your lives may depend on it someday. He looked at each young face in turn. The storm was coming, and we never saw the lightning gathering in their eyes. Vextal watched as the young cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Good. They were starting to understand that this was not going to be a simple tale of victory and conquest. The 6 months after we captured the new soul were the strangest of my military career, he continued. At first, everything seemed normal. Too normal. He activated a new hologram showing diplomatic meetings and trade stations bustling with activity. Human Ambassador Jin Ho still attended every Galactic Council meeting. He sat in his assigned seat, took notes, voted on trade agreements, and made polite conversation with other diplomats. He never mentioned the missing colony ship. He never asked about the 50,000 humans we had sold into slavery. The hologram zoomed in on Jin Ho, a middle-aged human with graying hair and kind eyes behind simple glasses. He looked like someone's grandfather, not a diplomat representing a species that had just lost 50,000 of its people. This confused many species, Vextal said. The Quellians asked him directly about the new soul during one session. Jin Ho simply smiled and said, "We are handling the situation." Then he went back to discussing grain export quotas as if nothing had happened. A young Krishan cadet raised his hand. "Commander, maybe the humans really were weak. Maybe they accepted the loss and moved on." Vextal's laugh was cold and bitter. "That is what we thought. That is what we hoped. We were so very wrong." The scene changed to show Krishan fleets attacking 2 more human ships over the following months. Seeing no response from humanity, War Marshal Thakran ordered more raids. We captured the transport ship Busan Dream with 8,000 humans aboard. Then we took the research vessel Jeju Explorer with 3,000 scientists and their families. Vextal pointed to the holographic ships being boarded by Krishan soldiers. Each time the humans sent the same message. "We are coming to get them back." 6 words. Nothing more. No threats of war, no demands for negotiations, no anger or sadness in their voices. Just a calm statement of fact. The hologram showed other alien species joining in the attacks on human ships. The Sec Collective saw our success and wanted their share. They captured 4 human cargo vessels. The Etherian noble houses, who usually stayed out of such things, began raiding human medical ships for their advanced healing technology. Vextal's 4 eyes darkened as he remembered. Even some of the smaller species got involved. The Beck pirates started hunting human ships specifically because they seemed like easy targets. Within 6 months, over 100,000 humans had been taken from their ships and sold in slave markets across the galaxy. The young cadets looked excited. This sounded like the kind of military success they had been trained to admire. And through it all, Vextal continued, the humans did nothing. Ambassador Jin Ho kept attending meetings. Human traders kept buying and selling goods. Their small patrol fleets kept to their regular routes. They acted like nothing was happening. He paused and looked directly at the cadets. But I was watching Jin Ho closely during those months, and I began to notice things. The hologram zoomed in on the human ambassador's face during a council session. He was taking notes. Detailed notes. Not about trade agreements or territorial disputes. He was writing down the names of every species that had attacked human ships, the locations where humans had been taken, the slave markets where they had been sold. He was making a list. Vextal's voice grew quieter, more serious, and he was not smiling anymore. None of the humans were smiling anymore. The scene shifted to show human space, with their colonies and trading posts scattered across several star systems. Trade captains who visited human worlds reported strange things. Construction projects that made no sense. Energy readings that did not match any known technology. Human civilians asking unusual questions about ship schedules and trade routes. A moth-like Etherian cadet fluttered her wings nervously. What kind of questions? Questions like how long does it take to travel from here to Kepler Station? And which trade routes do the Christian fleets use most often? And where do the ISEC keep their main military bases? Vextal walked closer to the cadets. The humans were not just asking these questions randomly. They were asking everyone who visited their worlds. Traders, diplomats, tourists, refugees. They offered good prices for information and excellent hospitality to anyone who could draw them detailed maps of other species' territories. The hologram showed human colonies that had become unusually quiet. Communication with human worlds became different. When you called them, they answered immediately. They were always polite and helpful, but there was something in their voices, something cold and focused that had not been there before. Vextal activated another display showing Admiral Yuna reviewing fleet positions on a massive holographic map. We know now that Admiral Yuna was using this time to plan. Every human ship that had been captured, every route that had been used to attack them, every species that had participated in the raids, she was studying it all. The image shifted to show Colonel Wu Jin training human soldiers in new fighting techniques. Colonel Wu Jin was training special forces teams for missions we could not even imagine. They practiced boarding hostile ships, rescuing prisoners, and fighting in environments we had never seen humans operate in before. Vextal's voice became darker, and Intelligence Director Jae-won was gathering information. Not just military intelligence, but personal information. The names and locations of every slave trader who had bought humans. The identities of every official who had authorized attacks on human ships. The family members and business partners of everyone who had profited from human suffering. The cadets were starting to look worried now. The Quellians tried to warn us. Their philosophers said something was wrong with the cosmic balance. They claimed the humans were preparing for something terrible, but they could not explain what. Vextal stopped pacing and stood still in front of the group. Even some of our own intelligence officers reported unusual activity in human space. Ships moving in patterns that made no sense. Communications using codes we could not break. Construction projects that seemed to have no purpose. He looked at each cadet in turn, but we ignored all the warnings. We were too busy celebrating our victories and counting our profits from selling human slaves. War Marshal Thokran declared that humans were the weakest species in the galaxy, and that we could take their ships whenever we wanted. The hologram showed Krishan celebration ceremonies with captured human technology on display. The Sec Collective held festivals to honor their successful raids. The Etherian nobles decorated their homes with stolen human art and medical equipment. The Beck pirates grew rich selling human slaves to mining companies. Vextal's 4 eyes began to glow with an inner light. We should have been afraid. We should have seen the signs. We should have realized that a species capable of traveling between stars was not weak just because they preferred peace to war. The hall grew colder, or maybe it just felt that way. Instead, we planned bigger raids. Thokran wanted to capture an entire human colony world. The Sec were planning to attack Earth itself. The Etherians were discussing how to breed humans for specific slave purposes. Vextal's voice dropped to almost a whisper, and all the while the humans were counting. counting every ship taken, counting every life stolen, counting every species that had decided to prey on them, counting every individual who thought humans were too weak to fight back. He activated one final hologram showing Jin Ho closing a thick notebook and standing up from his desk. On the last day of the 6th month, Ambassador Jin Ho made an announcement to the Galactic Council. He said humanity would no longer be attending diplomatic sessions. He said they had finished their preparations and would now begin their response to the attacks on their people. The cadets leaned forward. Then he smiled for the first time in 6 months. But it was not the kind smile we had seen before. It was the smile of a predator who had finally cornered his prey. Vextal turned off all the holograms, leaving the hall in relative darkness. That was when I finally understood. The humans had not been weak during those 6 months. They had been patient. There is a very big difference between the two, and we were about to learn exactly what that difference meant. The silence in the hall was complete. Vextal could hear the breathing of every cadet as they waited for him to continue. He had their full attention now. The attack came at Kepler Station, he said, the biggest slave market in the Outer Rim, where we had sold most of the captured humans. He activated a hologram showing the massive trading station. It was ugly and functional, with ships from dozens of species docked at its many ports. Weapon platforms surrounded it like metal thorns. I was commanding the dreadnought Bone Crusher in the defense fleet. 57 Krishan warships, 38 Sec battle cruisers, and 22 Etherian destroyers, plus the station's own weapons. We thought we were ready for anything. The young cadets looked impressed by the numbers. Vextal had commanded a truly massive force. The humans came out of hyperspace at exactly noon, station time, but they did not come in small patrol boats like we expected. The hologram changed to show ships emerging from hyperspace. The cadets gasped. The human vessels were enormous, larger than anything they had seen before. Admiral Yuna's flagship was called Inchen's Fury. It was 3 times the size of my dreadnought and covered in weapons we had never seen before. Behind it came 49 more ships just as large. Vextal's 4 eyes reflected the light from the hologram. But size was not what made us afraid. It was how they moved. Perfect formation. No wasted motion. No hesitation. They came toward us, like a machine built for one purpose: war. The display showed the human fleet advancing steadily toward Kepler Station. War Marshal Thokran ordered us to attack immediately. "Destroy the weak humans," he said. "Show them what happens when they challenge the Krishan Empire." Vextal laughed, but the sound was full of pain. I gave the order to fire. Every ship in our fleet opened up with everything we had: plasma cannons, missile swarms, energy beams, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The hologram showed brilliant lights as hundreds of weapons fired at the human ships. The humans had shields we had never seen before. Our weapons hit them and just disappeared, like throwing water at a mountain. Nothing got through. The young Krishan cadet who had spoken earlier raised her hand shakily. "Commander, how is that possible?" We learned later that the humans had spent those 6 months developing new technology. While we were celebrating our victories, they were solving the problem of how to protect their ships from our weapons. The scene shifted to show the human fleet beginning to return fire. When they shot back, we understood why they had been so patient. Their weapons were not just better than ours, they were from a completely different level of technology. Vextal pointed to streams of energy that seemed to cut through the Krishan ships like knives through paper. "My ship lost shields in the first volley. The second volley took out our weapons. The third volley disabled our engines. And through it all, Admiral Yuna was speaking to us on an open channel." The hologram showed the human admiral's face. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes like winter storms. She said, "You have something that belongs to us. We are here to take it back. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic law. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Her voice was calm and professional, like she was ordering supplies, instead of demanding the surrender of 127 warships. The display showed Krishan ships beginning to explode one by one. Thokran screamed orders to keep fighting. He called the humans cowards for hiding behind their shields. He promised to execute anyone who surrendered. Vextal's voice became quieter. I watched the battleship Skull Splitter get cut in half by a single human weapon. I saw the cruiser Blood Drinker simply vanish when it was hit by something that made space itself seem to bend. In 10 minutes, we lost 30 ships and had not damaged a single human vessel. The young cadets were staring at the hologram in shock. That was when the human boarding parties arrived. The scene changed to show small, fast ships launching from the human fleet and racing toward the surviving alien vessels. Captain Minsu led the team that boarded my ship. I expected them to blast through our hull and fight their way in like raiders. Instead, they used some kind of technology that let them walk through our armor like it was not there. Vextal's 4 eyes darkened as he remembered. The humans did not fight like any soldiers I had ever seen. They moved through our ship like they knew exactly where everything was. They disabled our weapons without destroying them. They captured our crew without killing anyone who did not resist. The hologram showed human soldiers in advanced armor moving through ship corridors with impossible precision. But it was not mercy that guided them. It was efficiency. They had studied our ships during those 6 months. They knew where every important system was located. They knew how many crew members we carried and where they would be stationed. They knew everything. He paused and looked at the cadets. Captain Minsu found me on my bridge trying to activate the self-destruct. He removed his helmet and looked me in the eyes. He was young, maybe the same age as some of you. But his eyes were old and cold and tired. Vextal's voice became a whisper. He said, "Commander Vextal, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. You will be taken to a secure location where you will provide information about the locations of human prisoners. If you cooperate, you will be treated well. If you do not cooperate, you will be turned over to Master Sergeant Bora." The display showed a human woman in combat armor. She was smaller than Captain Minsu, but something about her made the alien cadets shiver. I asked who Master Sergeant Bora was. Captain Minsu pointed to the woman standing behind him. She smiled at me, and I understood why he had offered me the choice to cooperate. Vextal began pacing again. While the space battle was happening, other human forces were attacking the station itself. They did not try to capture it. They went straight to the slave markets. The hologram showed human soldiers moving through the station's corridors with the same deadly efficiency they had shown on the ships. Commander Il-sung led the rescue teams. They had maps showing exactly where human prisoners were being held. They had lists of every slave trader who had bought humans. They had detailed plans of the station that were more accurate than our own security files. The scene shifted to show humans being freed from holding cells and slave quarters. When they found the survivors from the New Soul, everything changed. Vextal's voice became heavy with regret. Engineer Dongwu was barely alive. The broken bones we had given him had healed wrong. He could not walk without help. Medical Officer Hee-jin had been tortured so badly that she could not speak above a whisper. And Security Chief Tae-min. He stopped speaking for a moment. Tae-min had died 3 months earlier, still trying to protect the children even after everything we had done to him. The young cadets looked sick. When Commander Il-sung saw what had been done to the human prisoners, he made a decision that changed everything. He walked into the main slave market where hundreds of alien traders were still trying to hide, and he made an announcement. The hologram showed the human commander standing in the center of the chaotic marketplace. He said, "Everyone who bought humans as slaves has exactly 1 minute to identify themselves and surrender. Anyone who does not surrender will be hunted, down and executed. Anyone who tries to run will be shot immediately. Anyone who resists will be turned over to the people they enslaved." Vextal looked at each cadet. Then he started a countdown timer and waited. The display showed alien traders frantically surrendering while others tried to escape through service tunnels and emergency exits. The humans had planned for this too. Every exit was blocked. Every hiding place was watched. Every escape route was cut off. In exactly 1 minute, the slave market was under complete human control. Vextal's 4 eyes glowed with an inner fire. I watched from my cell as Commander Il-sung personally executed the slave traders who had tortured Hee-jin. Not in anger, he was completely calm, like a doctor removing a disease. That was when I truly understood what we had awakened. The hologram faded, leaving the cadets in dim light. The Battle of Kepler Station lasted 4 hours. When it was over, Every human prisoner had been freed, every slave trader was dead or in custody, and our entire fleet was destroyed or captured. Vextal stopped pacing and faced his audience. But that was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. Vextal noticed that several of the young cadets had grown pale during his description of the Battle of Kepler Station. Good. They were starting to understand the reality of what happened when someone made humanity truly angry. After Kepler Station, we thought the humans would be satisfied, he continued. We were wrong again. He activated a new hologram showing star maps with red lines connecting different systems. What happened next was not a war, in any sense we all understood. Wars have battles and territories and clear objectives. What the humans did was something else entirely. They called it the Reckoning. The display zoomed in on various alien worlds and space stations. Intelligence Director J1 had spent those 6 months of silence building a network of information that covered half the galaxy. The humans knew exactly who had participated in the slave trade. They knew where every captured human had been taken. They knew the names and locations of everyone who had profited from human suffering. A young Etherian cadet raised one of her delicate arms. Commander, surely they could not track everyone involved. The slave trade touches thousands of worlds. Vextal's laugh was cold and bitter. That is what we thought. That is what we hoped. We were so very wrong. The hologram changed to show the home world of the Sec Collective. The reptilian planet looked peaceful and secure, surrounded by defense platforms and patrol fleets. The Sec Ruling Council met in emergency session 3 days after Kepler Station. They decided to mobilize their entire fleet and attack human worlds before the humans could organize a larger response. Vextal pointed to the massive Sec government complex on the planet's surface. The council meeting lasted 6 hours. They planned to strike at 5 human colonies simultaneously and take millions of prisoners to replace the ones they had lost at Kepler Station. The scene shifted to show the council chambers in the middle of the night. They never got the chance to implement their plan. Operative Sujin and her team infiltrated the government complex while the council members were sleeping. The display showed shadowy figures moving through darkened hallways with impossible stealth. No alarms sounded. No guards saw them coming. No security systems detected their presence. The humans had studied Sec technology and culture for 6 months. They knew exactly how to move through their buildings without being noticed. Vextal's 4 eyes reflected the dim light as he described what happened next. By morning, every member of the Sec Ruling Council was dead. Not killed in battle, executed in their beds like the criminals they were. The humans left a simple message written in Sec blood on the council chamber walls. We told you we were coming to get them back. The young Sec cadet in the audience hissed in shock and anger. The humans did not stop there, Vextal continued. While Operative Sujin was dealing with the Sec leadership, other teams were hitting targets across the galaxy. The hologram showed simultaneous operations on dozens of different worlds. Pirate bases that had attacked human ships simply vanished overnight. One day they were there. The next day there was nothing but empty space and debris fields. No distress calls, no survivors, no explanations. The display shifted to show the elegant crystal spires of the Etherian noble houses. The Etherians thought they were safe because they had only participated in a few raids. They learned that the humans did not make distinctions between big criminals and small criminals. Vextal's voice grew darker. The human hackers, led by engineer Kyung-soo, broke into the Etherian communication networks and released 6 months of private conversations. Messages where the nobles discussed which humans would make the best slaves, plans to breed humans, for specific purposes, detailed descriptions of the torture they had inflicted on human prisoners. The scene showed Etherian nobles being dragged from their homes by angry mobs of their own people. The Etherian population was horrified to learn what their leaders had been doing. Within days, every noble house involved in the slave trade had been destroyed by their own citizens. The humans never had to fire a shot. Vextal paused to let this sink in. But the most frightening part was not the military attacks or the intelligence operations. It was the systematic way the humans dismantled every organization that had profited from human slavery. The hologram showed complex networks, of trade routes and business relationships. The humans had spent those 6 months mapping every connection, every bank that had processed payments for slave sales, every shipping company that had transported human prisoners, every government official who had taken bribes to look the other way. The display began showing these networks being cut apart, piece by piece. Trading companies that had bought human slaves found their cargo ships disappearing in hyperspace. Banks that had handled slave trade money discovered their accounts being emptied by mysterious computer viruses. Government officials who had authorized attacks on human ships simply vanished from their homes and offices. A young cadet from a species Vextal did not recognize raised her hand nervously. "Commander, how could the humans coordinate so many operations across such a large area?" "That was the terrifying part," Vextal replied. "They were not improvising or reacting to events. Every action had been planned during those 6 months of silence. Every target had been identified. Every operation had been rehearsed." The scene changed to show Admiral Yuna coordinating fleet movements while Intelligence Director Jae-won managed covert operations and Engineer Kyung-soo launched cyber attacks. The humans had built a war machine designed for one specific purpose: to completely destroy anyone who had harmed their people, and they were very, very good at it. Vextal activated a new display showing species across the galaxy rushing to surrender and make peace. Within 2 weeks of Kepler Station, dozens of governments were sending messages to human space begging for mercy. They offered to return any human slaves they still held. They promised to pay massive reparations. They signed treaties giving humans favorable trade terms and territorial rights. The hologram showed long lines of alien ships heading toward human space carrying freed prisoners and tribute payments. The smart species, like the Quellians and the free traders, had never participated in the slave trade. They found themselves elevated to the status of humanity's preferred partners. The humans gave them exclusive trading rights and military protection. Vextal's voice became thoughtful. But the humans were not interested in conquest for its own. Sci-Fi. They made their terms very clear. Return our people. Pay for the damage you caused. Prove that you can coexist peacefully with humanity. Do these things and you will be forgiven. Refuse and you will be destroyed. The display showed the worlds that chose to comply and those that chose to resist. Most species chose to comply. The ones that did not, the scene shifted to show barren worlds where once proud civilizations had stood. The Beck pirates thought they could hide in the asteroid fields of the Outer Rim. Captain Ye Jin's experimental warships found them. The pirates' bases were turned into cosmic dust so fine that it scattered across 3 star systems. Vextal's 4 eyes glowed brighter. The Kralin Empire thought they could fight the humans in open war. They had 2,000 ships and 100 million soldiers. It took the humans 3 days to completely destroy their military and occupy their homeworld. The young cadets were staring at the holographic displays in shock and fear. But perhaps the most frightening thing was how efficiently the humans did all of this. No wasted effort, no unnecessary destruction, no random violence. Everything was precise, planned, and purposeful. Vextal turned off the holograms and faced his audience. In 6 weeks, the humans had completely reshaped the power structure of the galaxy. Species that had been strong and proud were reduced to begging for mercy. Criminal organizations that had operated for centuries were wiped out overnight, and through it all the humans remained completely calm and professional. He walked closer to the cadets. They were not cruel. They were not sadistic. They were not interested in ruling over other species. They simply wanted to create a galaxy where humans could live safely without fear of being enslaved or murdered. Vextal's voice became very quiet. And when they were finished, when every human prisoner had been freed and every slave trader had been punished, they did something that shocked everyone. The young aliens leaned forward eagerly. They stopped. The word stopped hung in the air like a challenge. Several of the young cadets looked confused as if they had misheard what Vextal said. "I do not understand, Commander," said the young Etherian cadet. "If the humans were so powerful, why did they stop? Why did they not conquer the entire galaxy?" Vextal smiled for the first time since beginning his story. It was not a happy smile, but it was genuine. That is exactly what we asked ourselves, and the answer taught us more about human nature than all the battles and demonstrations of their power. He activated a final hologram showing the galaxy as it existed now, 3 cycles after the events he had been describing. Look at this map. What do you see? The cadets studied the display carefully. Human territory was marked in blue, but it was not much larger than it had been before the war. The humans did not take our worlds, said the young Christian cadet slowly. They did not expand their borders much at all. Exactly, Vextal said. They could have conquered half the galaxy in those 6 weeks. Instead, they went back to their own territory and resumed their normal activities. Trading, exploring, building, new colonies. All the peaceful things they had been doing before we attacked them. The scene zoomed in on human worlds, showing bustling cities and green farmlands. Engineer Dongwu, despite his injuries from our torture, designed the defensive systems that now protect human space. No one can attack a human world without facing weapons and shields far more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. The Yuan display showed the elegant space stations and orbital platforms that surrounded human colonies. Medical Officer Hai Jin leads a medical corps that provides aid to any species that treats humans with respect. Her hospitals have saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. She helps the same species that once enslaved her. Vextal's voice became softer, more thoughtful. Terraforming specialists so young turned the human worlds into gardens that are the envy of the galaxy. Refugees from war-torn systems come to human space seeking sanctuary, and the humans welcome them as long as they follow human laws. The hologram showed alien families living peacefully on human worlds alongside human citizens. But the most important, change is not visible on any map, Vextal continued. It is in how every species in the galaxy now thinks about humanity. The scene shifted to show the same slave markets where humans had once been sold. Now they were refugee centers and medical stations. The former slave markets have been converted into refugee centers run by director Yun Ji. Species that once bought and sold humans now compete to earn human favor by helping displaced populations. A young cadet from a species Vextal did not recognize raised her hand. Commander, if the humans are so forgiving, why do we still fear them? Vextal's 4 eyes focused on her with laser intensity. Because we learned the difference between human patience and human weakness. We learned that humans prefer peace, but they are absolutely ruthless when defending their own people. The hologram showed human patrol fleets moving through space. They looked peaceful enough, but every alien ship they encountered gave them a wide berth. Pirates and raiders have learned to avoid human ships completely, not because the humans hunt them actively, but because everyone knows what happens to those who harm human civilians. The display showed the wreckage of pirate bases scattered across empty space. The Galactic Council now operates under new rules, Vextal continued. Rules that humans wrote and everyone else accepted. Slavery is illegal throughout the galaxy. Attacks on civilian ships are considered crimes against all civilized species. Any species that commits these crimes faces not just human justice, but the combined response of their allies. The scene showed the current Galactic Council, with Ambassador Jin Ho sitting in a more prominent position than before. Ambassador, Jin Ho still attends every meeting, but now when he speaks, everyone listens. When he makes suggestions, they become policy. When he says something is unacceptable, it stops immediately. Vextal walked closer to his audience. The humans created something far more effective than an empire. They created a network of alliances, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts that places them at the center of galactic civilization. The hologram showed trade routes and communication lines connecting human space to dozens of other systems. Species that cooperate with humans prosper. Their technology improves. Their economies grow. Their people live longer and healthier lives. Species that threaten humans find themselves isolated, poor, and defenseless. The young cadets were beginning to understand the true scope of what had happened. The Quellians, who warned us about attacking humans, are now humanity's closest allies. They have access to human medical technology and defensive systems. Their philosophers study at human universities. The display showed Quellian and human scientists working together on advanced research projects. The free traders, who stayed neutral during the conflict, now handle most of the shipping between human worlds and the rest of the galaxy. They have become the richest merchant guild in known space. Vextal's voice became more personal. And what about those of us who attacked them? What happened to the Christian Empire and the Sect Collective and all the others who thought humans were weak? The scene showed the current state of these former powers. They were much smaller and less influential than before. We serve as examples. The humans gave us a choice. Learn from our mistakes and help build a better galaxy or be destroyed completely. Most of us chose to learn. Vextal gestured to himself. I am living proof of human mercy and human justice working together. I commanded fleets that enslaved 50,000 humans. I personally oversaw the torture of innocent people. By any reasonable standard, I deserved to die for my crimes. The cadets watched him carefully. Instead, the humans gave me a choice. I could provide testimony against my superiors and spend the rest of my life teaching others about the consequences of underestimating human resolve. Or I could be turned over to the families of the humans I had killed. Vextal's 4 eyes darkened as he remembered. I chose to teach. And so here I am, 3 cycles later, telling my story to young cadets from across the galaxy, warning them about the difference between human patience and human weakness. The hologram faded, leaving the hall in dim light. The humans did not want to rule us, Vextal said quietly. They simply wanted to ensure that their people could live safely in a galaxy that respects the value of sentient life. He looked at each young face in turn. They succeeded. Today, human civilians travel freely throughout the galaxy without fear. Human colonies grow and prosper under the protection of the most advanced military in known space. Human scientists, doctors, and engineers share their knowledge with any species willing to work peacefully alongside them. Vextal's voice became stronger, more urgent. But never forget what you have learned here today. The humans achieved this not through conquest but through the complete and systematic destruction of everyone who threatened them. They proved that a species can be peaceful and kind and generous while still being absolutely terrifying to their enemies. The young cadets sat in stunned silence. When you leave this station and begin your careers, you will meet humans. They will be polite and friendly and helpful. They will smile and offer to share their food and their knowledge. They will seem gentle and harmless. Vextal's 4 eyes began to glow with inner fire. Remember this story when that happens. Remember that human kindness is real, but it is not weakness. Remember that human patience has limits, and crossing those limits has consequences that reshape entire civilizations. He stood tall before them, every scar on his body a reminder of hard-learned lessons. Cross them at your peril, but serve alongside them with honor, and you will find no more loyal allies in the galaxy. The choice, as always, is yours. The hall fell completely silent except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. In that silence, every young cadet understood that they had just learned one of the most important lessons of their lives. Vextal looked at them one last time. Remember this tale. Tell it to others. The galaxy is safer when everyone understands the difference between human patience and human weakness. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving the cadets to contemplate the terrifying and wonderful truth about humanity's place in the galaxy.